5th March 2025. Let's take a look at the headlines making waves in Nigeria today. First, the Punch newspaper. The leading story. First Bank holds groundbreaking ceremony for new state-of-the-art eco-friendly headquarters. You can get the complete story on page 29 of the Punch newspaper. And below the leading story from the right, Rivers crisis. Niger Delta groups threaten violence as budget ultimatum expires today. Fear over attack on oil facility. SLG chairman Vol Council's takeover. You can get the complete story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Moving over to the next paper, Nigerian Tribune, the leading story. First Bank holds groundbreaking ceremony for new state-of-the-art eco-friendly headquarters. You can get the complete story on page 6 of the Tribune. Moving over to the next paper, Vanguard, the leading story. Rivers crisis. Leaders, INC talk tough. You can get the complete story on page 5 of the Vanguard and above the leading story. Oil price declined to $73.5 per barrel, threatening budget 2025 revenue target. You can get the complete story on page 19 of the Vanguard. National Assembly positioning Nigeria for $1 trillion economy by 2030, says Senate. You can get the complete story on page 9 of the Vanguard. Power generation hits 5,713 megawatts, says TCN. You can get the complete story on page 8 of the Vanguard. Ogoni. Mosop, 31 groups demand justice for Saro Wiwa. You can get the complete story on page 12 of the Vanguard and below the leading story from the right. Alleged sexual harassment. Khan opposes calls for Akpabio's resignation. You can get the complete story on page 12 of the newspaper. 16 burned to death as gas cylinder explodes in vehicle. You can get the complete story on page 7 of the Vanguard. And directly below the picture, Nigeria deepens trade investment with 5 countries, says Oduwole. You can get the complete story on page 8 of the Vanguard. Insecurity. We will subject Okito buses to forensic analysis, says Soludo. You can get the complete story on page 11 of the Vanguard. Lagos Assembly. No plan to compel Obasa to resign, says Lagos APC. You can get the complete story on page 10 of the newspaper. 2026 World Cup qualifier. Musa returns as Chile picks 39 players for Zimbabwe Rwanda clash. You can get the complete story on page 32 of the Vanguard. Moving over to the next paper, Daily Trust, the leading story. Killing of northern drivers in southeast unacceptable, says SCF. Urges federal government to tame attacks. Demand compensation for victims. DSS invites Daily Trust reporters over story. You can get all of this story on page 4 of the Daily Trust and above the leading story from the left. Police narrates how immigration CJ Parindang died. You can get the complete story on page 11 of the Daily Trust. EFCC arrests Akwa Ibom Governor Udom. You can get the complete story on page 31 of the Daily Trust. Boko Haram insurgency kill police inspector's sons in Yobe. You can get the complete story on page 6 of the Daily Trust and below the leading story. Tinubu reappoints Ogunjimi as AGF. You can get the complete story on page 26 of the Daily Trust. 20-year-old man allegedly beats mother to death. You can get the complete story on page 21 of the Daily Trust. We are not enemies. Shekaru speaks on relationship with Kwankwa, so you can get the complete story on page 13 of the Daily Trust. 22 die in Ogun, Kogi, Oyo auto crashes. You can get the complete story on page 6 of the Daily Trust. Moving over to the next paper, The Guardian, the leading story. Anxiety as federal government tightens nose on MDAs with new payment platform. You can get the complete story on page 6 of The Guardian. And above the leading story, First Bank holds groundbreaking ceremony for new state-of-the-art eco-friendly headquarters. You can get the complete story on page 29 of The Guardian. Moving over to the last paper on the list, Business Day, the leading story. Multinational shareholders brace for year of zero dividends. You can get the complete story on page 31 of the newspaper, and beside the leading story from the left. Leaky pipelines plunge Nigeria LNG's gas supply by 80%. Exports decline by 40%. You can get all of this story on page 31 of the newspaper. Telcor's growth drags on FS losses. You can get the complete story on page 30 of the newspaper. Developers lose appetite for build-to-let properties on rent defaults. You can get the complete story on page 31 of the newspaper, and these are the headlines making waves in Nigeria today. If any of these headlines caught your attention, do get a copy of the paper to read the complete story.